Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Students, today we are going to start with the third approach of proving a mathematical statement, that is by with the help of proof by contraposition, which is also known as proof by contrapositive, right? Now, it is also an indirect method of to prove a statement, same like as we did the proof by contradiction. But here we are going to follow a different approach in the sense that in order to prove a certain statement that are specifically making use of if then conditions, right? As we have read about implication, where we are going to have a scenario that if P then Q, then in such statements, mostly we are going to use the approach of proof by contraposition. Now, let me first illustrate you the steps that we have to follow or the approach how we are going to carry out a proof by contraposition. Now, the steps at hand or the approach that we are going to follow is that if we have to prove, if we have to prove that P implies Q, right? Which can be read as if P then Q. We assume not of Q and we try to show not of P, right? So what I can say about not of Q? This is basically the negation, not sign आ रहा है ना इसमें. This is the negation of conclusion, because what we have to conclude, given scenario क्या था, that P is implying Q. So this was in fact our conclusion, and this was in fact our hypothesis, the facts that were given to us. So we are just swapping it in a very reverse manner, in the sense that we are starting with the assumption of a negation of the conclusion, and here we are going to show not of P, which is in fact the negation of hypothesis, right? So uh, what I can say that the claim here is that, if I may write it symbolically, if we are going, if we have to prove that P implies Q is true, right? So we strive for, or the approach that we are going to follow is that not of Q, you can also write it like in this manner, dot of Q implies not of P. In other words, you can say that P implies Q is basically equivalent to not of Q implies not of P. Okay? So you can say that it is an alternate method of proof. Now let me clarify this thing, that how they are equivalent, right? So the approach here is that, if you people remember, logically P implies Q का क्या मतलब था? P implies Q means not of P or Q. आई होप ये आपको चीज़ याद होगी. ठीक, अब इसी डेफिनेशन को फॉलो करते हुए, यानी अगर इम्प्लीकेशन के एक एंड के ऊपर आई हैव एनी प्रेडिकेट P and on the other hand of the implication I have an any predicate Q, तो ये चीज़ सिंबॉलिकली किसके इक्विवेलेंट है? नॉट ऑफ P जो if के साथ अटैच्ड है, और Q जो then के साथ अटैच है. ठीक है, सेम इसी डेफिनेशन को मैं यहाँ अप्लाई करने जा रही हूँ. किसके ऊपर? मेरा क्लेम ये था कि P implies Q इक्विवेलेंट है नॉट ऑफ Q implies नॉट ऑफ P के. ठीक है, हाउ आई कैन क्लेम दैट, मैं इसी को प्रूव करने जा रही हूँ. ये दोनों सेम कैसे हैं? इसी डेफिनेशन को मैं इसके ऊपर अप्लाई कर रही हूँ, यानी अगर नॉट ऑफ क्यू इम्प्लाइज नॉट ऑफ पी लिखा हो तो इस डेफिनेशन को फॉलो करते हुए मैं यहाँ पे क्या लिखूंगी, नॉट ऑफ, इम्प्लीकेशन से पहले क्या लिखा हुआ है, इस पी की जगह यहाँ पर क्या लिखा हुआ है, नॉट ऑफ क्यू, तो मैंने ये नॉट ऑफ क्यू लिख दिया। आई होप यहाँ तक क्लियर होगा, यानी आप नॉट ऑफ पी लेके चलते हैं ना, तो इसी तरह मैंने यहाँ पे नॉट ऑफ, इस पूरे को समझे मैंने पी से रिप्लेस किया। ठीक, इसके बाद कौन सा ऑपरेटर है, और ऑपरेटर है। देन कम्स क्यू, द थिंग दैट इज ऑन द second hand other side of the implication. So on the other side of the implication I have not of p, right? This negation is going to cancel each other, so I am left with q or not of p। ठीक, और अगर आप इसके ऊपर कम्यूटेटिव लॉ लगाएं अपॉन और, देन यू कैन ऑल्सो राइट इट लाइक नॉट ऑफ p और q। Now you can very well see that this is exactly the same that we have deduced. So p implies q को prove करने के लिए if we go for not of q implies not of p, then that is going to be equivalent. The point is that कि if somehow we are able to prove कि इस negation of q implies negation of p true है, it means the given statement to us is basically true, right? So इसी approach को follow करते हुए now we are going to solve some examples where we are going to prove that statement with the help of contraposition. Okay, let me first erase it. Starting with the first question here, the statement at hand is if 7x plus 9 is even, then x is odd, right? So the statement at hand is of this form. Let me first identify what is my p, what is my q. अब आपने keywords अपने सामने रखने हैं, एक तो आपके पास है if, दूसरा keyword है then, right? So the in between statements, that is 7x plus 9 is even. This is a predicate whose value or whose justification is depending upon the variable x. So this is going to be my p. Then x is odd. This is another statement, another predicate, and that is in fact q. So this is basically p implies q. And how I'm going to read it verbally, if 7x plus 9 is even, then x is odd. ठीक, अब इसका निगेशन क्या होगा, बिकॉज जो अप्रोच हमने फॉलो करनी है दैट इज, let's start with the proof by contraposition. The approach that we have to follow is not of q implies not of p. ठीक, तो फर्स्ट आई एम गोइंग टू राइट व्हाट इज नॉट ऑफ q, व्हाट विल बी नॉट ऑफ p। पहले उसको वर्बली लिखते हैं, देन वी विल गो फॉर इट सिंबॉलिकली। सो वी मे से दैट हमने जस्ट निगेट करना है, किसको निगेट करना है, पहले q को निगेट करना है। अगर लिखा हुआ है कि x इज ऑड, तो इसकी निगेशन क्या होगी, x इज नॉट ऑड। ठीक, p की निगेशन क्या होगी, 7x plus 9 is even, 7x plus 9 is not even, right? So I may write here that 7x plus 9 is not even. ठीक हो गया। अब यहाँ पे आप keywords जो यूज करने जा रहे हैं वो क्या है, if this then this, because we are just carrying out implication here. ठीक, now what I can write it further is that x is not odd. अगर x odd नहीं है तो फिर वो definitely क्या होगा, even होगा. So the statement at hand will be if x is even, then 7x plus 9 is not even का क्या मतलब हुआ? अगर वो even नहीं है तो फिर वो क्या है? Odd है. So that is odd. Now this statement is in fact not of q implies not of p. ठीक है, आप इसको लिख सकते हैं कि ये आपका हो गया not of q, this one is not of p, and here comes the implication if then जो उसको follow करें. So now let's try to prove the statement that is at our hand. अगर हम इस चीज को true साबित कर सकें, then definitely the given statement to us is true. What we have to strive for? Sorry, we have to strive for कि अगर x even है तो 7x plus 9 is odd number. ठीक. Now starting with the hypothesis. Hypothesis यहाँ पे क्या हो गया? X is even. ये एक known fact है. Hypothesis इसको कहते हैं known facts को, जो आपको given होते हैं, जिनको यूज करते हुए आप किसी चीज को या किसी कंक्लूजन के ऊपर पहुंचते हैं. So अगर x even है, ठीक है, तो if x is even, it means x is going to be a multiple of 2, right? So symbolically or mathematically, what I'm going to write here is that there exists some k that belongs to a set of integers z, and x की form क्या है? This is going to be this is going to be a multiple of 2, in the sense कि x को आप लिख सकते हैं 2 times an integer. अब ये इंटीजर k क्या हो सकता है? 1 भी हो सकता है, 2 भी हो सकता है, 3 भी हो सकता है, पॉजिटिव भी हो सकता है, नेगेटिव भी हो सकता है. So while carrying out a analysis that whether a number is even or odd, we don't go for its sign. We are just taking it even it is a multiple of 2 or not. So for any integer k, if it is a multiple of 2, then definitely x is going to be an even number. ठीक. तो x की एक जनरलाइज्ड फॉर्म आ गई कि x कोई ना कोई मल्टीपल है, और वो किसका मल्टीपल है? 2 का मल्टीपल. So plugging in this form of x in the equation, in the statement that 7x plus 9 is odd, ये हमारा कंक्लूजन है, ये हमारा वो फैक्ट है जिसके लिए हमने स्ट्राइव करना है, इसको प्रूव करने की कोशिश करनी है. किसकी हेल्प से? इस गिवन फैक्ट की हेल्प से कि x एक इवन नंबर. ठीक. अब अगर मैं x की ये फॉर्म यहाँ पे प्लग इन करूँ इस इक्वेशन में, तो मैं x की जगह लिख सकती हूँ, सॉरी लेट मी इरेज इट, I can write here 2k plus 9, right? This is in fact 7 times 2 times k, right? How I can further manipulate it? I can also write it like 2 times 7k. No problem, because all these three elements are in fact multiplying with each other, plus 9. Now this point is very very important. Here you can see what you can analyze about this number for any value of k. k कोई भी integer है, इसके against आप क्या कह सकते हैं कि whatever is the value of k, when it is multiplied by 7 and finally being multiplied by 2, this is definitely going to be an even number, no doubt about it. दायरा 2 का मल्टीपल है तो even ही होगा, चाहे k की कोई भी वैल्यू हो. And the other thing, on the other hand of the plus sign, we are having a number 9, which is definitely an odd number. For sure it is an odd number. So this implies that we are going to have an addition of even number and a odd number. And this is a known fact that addition of even and odd number is always going to result in a odd number. This is a known fact of mathematics कि आप किसी भी even और odd number को add up करते हैं, you are always going to have a odd number. So this implies that 7x plus 9 is odd number. And once we have proved that not of Q implies not of P is true, this implies that not of Q implies not of P is true. Hence, P implies Q, यानी जो given हमारी statement थी is true, right? So this is the end of the proof, and we have proved that statement by contraposition. Okay, ji, let's do another question here. Okay, ji, the next statement at hand is if x, y is odd, then x is odd and y is odd, right? So let me first identify my P and Q here. So this one is going to be P, and this whole thing is going to be Q, right? And in between comes the implication. So in order to prove that x, y, multiplication, the product of two numbers x and y is odd, then the claim is that x is also odd, y is also odd. You can't say that one of them is or even or one of them is odd, right? So the negation of Q, right? Let me write here the negation of Q. What is that going to be? The negation statement is definitely going to be x is even and y is even. And what will be the negation of P? This is definitely going to be xy is even. Because P क्या था? xy is odd. उसका reverse क्या हो गया? xy is even. So let's start with the proof. Where we have to follow the approach that we have to prove that not of Q implies not of P. Now, this is the hypothesis, the given fact, and using this fact, we have to reach this conclusion. So, the not of Q claims that x is even and y is even. So, if x is even, let me write it again here. If x is even, then there exists an integer k1 that belongs to the set of integers, and x is going to have the form 2 times k1, right? Similarly, if I claim that y is even, then there exists a integer k2 that belongs to the set of integers, and for which y is 2 times k2, right? Now, with these two given approaches, I have to strive for this approach. That is, their product should result in an even number. So let's compute the product here, that is x dot y. According to these two forms, being x and y being even, this is going to be 2k1 times 2k2, right? Or you can say this is going to be 2 times 2 times k1 times k2. K1, K2 can be even, K1, K2 can be odd. We are not going to worry about them. The whole thing here is that they are in fact multiplied by 2. If I may let 2k1 and k2 is equals to k. So this is in fact 2 times k, and you are pretty sure that this k is definitely going to be an integer. This definitely shows that it is an even number. Hence, P implies Q is true because not of Q implies not of P is true, right? So these are all the approaches that are basically related to the proof by contraposition. Let's go through another example. If n cube plus 2n plus 1 is odd, then n is even, right? So again, this is P and this one is Q. Not of Q, not of Q. Not of Q is going to be n is odd. Not of P is going to be nq plus 2n plus 1 is even. What we have to strive for in order to carry out the proof by contraposition, that not of Q implies not of Q. So starting with the given hypothesis that n is odd, making use of this fact, there exists a variable in k1 that belongs to a set of integers for which n is 2k1 plus 1, generalized form of a odd number, right? Now plugging in this form of n in the given predicate, that is which is in fact the negation of p, that is nq plus 2n plus 1 is even. So let me rewrite it here, nq plus 2n plus 1, and we have to show that this is in fact a even number. Okay, so let me first plug in the form here, that is 2k1. uh, if I think it is not going to confuse you, let me replace it with k so that I should not be writing the subscript again and again. ठीक है ना, जस्ट k1 को k से रिप्लेस कर दिया ताकि लिखने में आसानी हो. So 2k1 plus 1 whole cube plus 2k, sorry, 2k plus 1 plus 1, राइट. इस क्यूब को मैं लिख सकती हूँ 2k 2k plus 1 times 2k plus 1 whole square plus, simplifying it, I'm going to get 4k plus 2 and the last term, that is plus 1. So this is in fact going to be 2k plus 1 upon taking square. This is going to be 4k square plus 4k plus 1 plus 4k plus 3, adding last two terms, right? So let me continue it here. Just making a space. Okay, ji, continuing it here. 2k plus 1 times 4k square plus 4k plus 1 plus 4k plus 3, right? So multiplying it by term, I'm going to get 8k cube plus 2k plus 8k square plus 4k square plus 4k plus 1 again plus 4k plus 3, right? So adding all of them together, I'm going to have 8k cube plus adding these two, I'm going to get 12k square plus 10k, adding these terms, and finally 3 plus 4, that is going to, sorry, 3 plus 1, that is going to result in 4, right? Now here you can see that this equation comprising of 4 terms, I can take 2 common out of it and I can write it like uh, 4k cube plus 6k square plus 5k plus 2, right? And if I may replace this whole thing that is inside the brackets by a variable say a, ठीक, जो 4k क्यूब है प्लस 6k स्क्वायर प्लस 5k प्लस 2, फॉर एनी वैल्यू ऑफ k, मैं इस सबको एड अप करूँ, उसके क्यूब्स लूँ, स्क्वायर्स लूँ, and I multiply it by certain constants, at the end what I'm going to get is definitely going to be an integer, and that integer is in fact a, ठीक, उसको मैंने जनरलाइज्ड फॉर्म में a लिख दिया. Then finally I can say I'm going to have 2 times a value that is a. Now whatever is this a, which is for sure going to be an integer being multiplied by 2, this is going to be an even number. ऐसा ही होगा ना? So being an even number, we have what we have proved. We have in fact proved the negation of p, that n cube plus 2n plus 1 is even with n being a odd number. So this implies that not of Q implies not of P is true. Hence, P implies Q is true. That is, whatever statement that was given to us, that is basically true. So this is going to prove the statement. So this is how we are going to carry out a proof with the help of contraposition. The approach that we are going to follow here, the technique that is to be carried out, that is just to take the things in a controversial manner, uh, other way around, and trying to prove a statement. If you people have any queries, do note them down and I will try to solve them in the interactive session. Thank you.